Once upon a time, in a kingdom far away, lived a king with his daughters. They were all beautiful, but the youngest princess, she was something else entirely. Her beauty was so radiant, it was said the sun itself would pause in its journey just to gaze upon her face. On her favorite sunny afternoons, the princess loved to go to a cool forest near the palace. Her most treasured possession was a small, solid gold ball. She would toss it high into the air and catch it as it fell, a simple game that brought her endless joy. One day, as she was playing her favorite game near an old, deep well, she tossed the golden ball a little too high. It arced through the sky, a glittering speck against the blue, but when it came down, she missed the catch. The ball bounced once on the grass, rolled, and with a small asterisk, plop asterisk, it disappeared into the dark water of the well. The princess peered into the depths, but the well was too deep to see the bottom. Her heart sank. She sat down by the well's edge and began to cry, her sobs echoing in the quiet forest. Her beautiful face was streaked with tears, and she felt utterly hopeless. Suddenly, a voice croaked from the well, "What's wrong, little princess? You're crying so loudly, it could break a heart of stone." She looked around, startled, but saw no one. Then she glanced down at the well and saw a small green frog, its head just above the water, its big, bulging eyes looking right at her. "Oh, it's you, old water splasher," she said, wiping her tears. "I'm crying because my golden ball has fallen into the well." "Is that all?" the frog replied. "I can help you with that, but what will you give me if I fetch your toy?" "Whatever you want, dear frog," she exclaimed, her hopes soaring. "My finest dresses, my pearls and jewels, even the golden crown I'm wearing." The frog shook its head slowly. "Your dresses, your pearls, your jewels, and your golden crown. I don't want any of those. But if you will love me and let me be your companion and playmate, if I can sit next to you at your little table, eat from your golden plate, drink from your little cup, and sleep in your little bed, if you promise me all this, then I will dive down and bring your golden ball back to you." The princess quickly agreed. Yes, I promise you all of that. Just bring me my ball." But secretly, she thought to herself, "What a silly frog. He lives in the water with other frogs. He can't possibly be a real friend to a human." Hearing her promise, the frog dipped its head under the water and disappeared. The princess waited, holding her breath. A few moments later, the frog resurfaced with the golden ball in its mouth and tossed it onto the grass. The princess was overjoyed. She snatched up her precious ball and, without a second thought for the frog, turned and ran back towards the palace as fast as she could. Wait, the frog croaked after her. "Take me with you. I can't run as fast as you can." But the princess paid no attention to his cries. She was already at the palace doors, the little frog's voice fading behind her. She quickly forgot all about him, happy to have her favorite toy back. The very next day, as the princess was sitting down to dinner with the king and all the courtiers, they heard a strange noise from outside. Asterisk splish splash asterisk. Something was hopping up the marble staircase. Soon it reached a top, and a little voice called out, "Youngest princess, open the door for me." The princess ran to see who it was. When she opened the grand door, she saw the frog from the well sitting there. She slammed the door shut in a panic and rushed back to her seat, her heart pounding. The king saw how pale she was and asked, "My child, what has frightened you? Is there a giant at the door waiting to carry you away?" "Oh no, dear father," she replied, her voice trembling. "It's not a giant, but a horrid frog." "A frog? And what does a frog want with you?" With her head down, the princess told her father everything that had happened at the well the day before, and how she had promised the frog he could be her companion. Just as she finished her story, they heard another knock, and the frog's voice called out again, "Youngest princess, open up for me. Do you not remember your promise by the cool water of the well? Youngest princess, open up for me." The king looked at his daughter with a stern expression. "What you have promised, you must keep," he said firmly. "Go and let him in." With a heavy heart, the princess walked back to the door and opened it. The frog hopped in and followed her right to her chair. Once she was seated, he cried out, "Lift me up beside you." She hesitated, her face filled with disgust. But one look from her father made her obey. She lifted the frog onto the chair beside her, but he wasn't satisfied. He hopped onto the table and said, "Now push your little golden plate nearer so that we can eat together." The princess did as he asked, but everyone at the table could see she was doing it against her will. The frog enjoyed his dinner immensely, taking bite after bite. But the princess couldn't swallow a single thing. Every morsel seemed to get stuck in her throat. Finally, the frog said, "I have eaten and I am full. Now I am tired. Carry me to your little room and make your little silk bed ready so we can go to sleep." This was too much for the princess. The thought of this cold, slimy frog sleeping in her clean, beautiful bed made her start to cry again. But the king's face grew even sterner. "This little frog helped you when you were in trouble," he declared. "You cannot scorn him now." There was no choice. The princess carefully picked up the frog with 2 fingers, a look of pure disgust on her face, and carried him upstairs to her bedroom. She placed him in a corner, as far from her bed as possible. But as she lay down in her bed, he hopped over. "I am tired, and I want to sleep as well as you," he croaked. "Lift me up, or I will tell your father." At that, the princess flew into a rage. This was the final straw. "You want to sleep, do you, you wretched frog?" she shouted. She grabbed him and, with all her might, threw him against the wall. "Now you can sleep there." But as the frog hit the wall and fell to the floor, a strange thing happened. He was no longer a frog. Standing before her was a handsome prince with kind, sparkling eyes and a gentle smile. The princess stared in astonishment. The prince then explained that he had been her companion all along. An evil witch had cast a spell on him, turning him into a frog and trapping him in the well. The spell could only be broken if a princess would let him eat from her plate and sleep in her bed. "You have broken the curse," he said, his voice full of gratitude. "You have set me free." The princess's anger melted away, replaced by wonder and a little bit of shame for how she had treated him. By the will of her father, the king, they were soon betrothed. The next morning, as the sun rose, a magnificent carriage pulled up to the palace. It was drawn by 8 white horses, each decorated with beautiful white ostrich feathers, and their harnesses glittered with gold. At the back of the carriage stood the prince's faithful servant, Henry. Henry had been so heartbroken when his master was turned into a frog that he had bound his heart with 3 iron bands to keep it from breaking with grief. The carriage was there to take the prince and his new bride back to his own kingdom. The faithful Henry helped them both in, then took his place behind them, overjoyed to see his master restored. They had not gone far when the prince heard a loud crack from behind them, as if the carriage were breaking. He turned and called out, "Henry, the carriage is breaking." "No, master, it is not the carriage," Henry replied. "It is one of the iron bands from my heart, which I bound in my great sorrow when you were a frog in the well." Twice more on their journey, they heard the same loud cracking sound. Each time, the prince thought the carriage was falling apart, and each time, faithful Henry explained that it was another iron band snapping from his heart. Now that it was filled with joy, and so the prince and princess arrived safely in his kingdom. They ruled with kindness and wisdom, and they lived, as all the best stories end, happily ever after. Thank you so much for joining me for this classic fairy tale. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more magical tales. See you next time.